Hey you, and welcome back to Let's Play Kerbal Space Program. This is episode 3. My name is Satchmo. Thank you guys so much for being here. Let's go right to mission control and see what they want us to do. We're still going to hold off on these observational survey ones. We've already done a couple hauls. There's a test here, test here, test here. These are all in flight. Here's a suborbital trajectory one. So they want us to test a solid fuel booster on a suborbital trajectory between 130 and 140 kilometers. So suborbital in this context means that it has to be in space, but on a trajectory that's going to send it back down to Kerbin. So that's fine, we can do that. Gonna be kind of a fun one. And we will consider this a Hopper class mission. So we're going to use our Hopper series. We have 1, 2, and 4. I don't know what happened to 3. I think I just forgot to click save on that one, so that one has been lost to the times. But let's load Hopper 4 and let's iterate on that. So let's first thing is let's look at the booster that they want us to bring up. They want us to bring that monster up. So it is quite large. Let's get rid of all this bottom part, which doesn't really mean that there's really no reason for me to load it, but let's just pretend that we did. This is a solid fuel booster, but all they need us to do is test it. So I'm going to take all the fuel out of it, and I'm going to use fuel tanks. Liquid fuel tanks, I should say, to actually do the getting us up there. Right? So there. And how many of these do we think we're going to need? A lot. Let's see how far that gets us. And let's go ahead and put on nose cones. 1760. I'm going to guess we're going to need probably closer to 2000 Delta V. 2044. I think 2000 Delta V will get us there. So let's say that's good enough in terms of the Delta V. Let's go ahead and strut this so it holds together. Let's put on some winglets so it flies straight. Okay. There's no solid fuel in there, that's good. Let's put that on its own stage. What else here? That can go off with these. Let's put that there. Just really doing a little reorganizing. So these two go off, and then once we get up to the altitude, I'll be able to activate that through staging. And then later on, all of these will decouple. And then we'll do the radial ones first. There we go. The 2 radial parachutes and then the top parachute. I don't think I need all 3 parachutes. I'm pretty sure I don't. But it's not a bad idea to have. We're also probably going to need some thermal protection, because we are going quite high, and there's a chance that with our trajectory being as shallow as it is, that we will just come straight back down. So we're going to need some thermal protection. We could probably also use some drogue chutes, but if we're only taking this little capsule back down to Earth, it's pretty light, and you typically don't need drogue chutes for that. But we don't know. With all the extra equipment, we've dropped down below $2,000, and while I don't really think we need $2,000 specifically, I'm going to what's happening here? There you go. There you go, 2061. I'm going to give us $2,000, so at least we'll know if that's the right amount for the future. The struts have kind of gone funny, so we're going to put that back. They've gone funny again. There we go. Alright, there's a little sanity check. Those go down, then that, then all of the things disconnect that. Aerodynamics, heat shield to come back on. Hopper Mark 5. Save this craft. Let's look at our crew. Who needs the experience? Valentina can. Now, you only get experience for doing things that the person hasn't already done before, so there's a chance that I'm not actually giving Valentina any experience here. But just in case she does something unique on this flight, we should go ahead and put her in there just in case. Okay, the other thing to pay attention to here is your thrust to weight ratio. You can't just keep adding fuel forever and ever and ever. These engines rather, will only push so hard, right? They can only thrust so hard. And that's where the thrust to weight ratio comes in. So anything over 1 means that this can lift more than the mass of the ship. So that's good. Anything below 1 means you're not going to get off the ground. Okay? So essentially, I could lift this ship 2.5 times, right? 2.5 thrust to weight ratio. It's kind of a simplified way to look at that. So be looking at your thrust to weight ratios if you have this information available to you. And that's going to tell you kind of how much more fuel and how much more mass you can add to your ship and still be able to lift it off the ground. So a thrust to weight ratio of 2.5 is like ridiculously high. It's in real world terms. So just go ahead and launch this. But it'll do the job just fine for us today. So I'm going to launch up and I'm going to switch to map view and see when we get to that target number, which is 130 and 140. There is no speed requirement, so long as I hit that target, I can launch the center core and or test the center core, and we'll be okay. So there we go. She's flying steady. That's good. I'll still be keeping an eye on the nav ball because sometimes when you get up to you get up in the atmosphere a little bit, they'll start to become a little unstable. But we're looking okay. I don't remember if I said this in the last video, and also I've had to re-record this episode one time because I had a problem, so I don't remember if I said it in the recording or not, so I may be repeating myself, I don't know, but at any rate, this Kerbal Engineer mod you might be looking at over here, I don't have it active right now because there's a part that you have to add to your ship to allow you to actually use it, but that mod will give you a whole lot of information about your craft and about about a lot of things, and we'll definitely be seeing a lot of that in the future. The rendezvous information and so on. If I had that available to me right now, let me stop for a second because we're getting up close. I'm gonna do a little bit. There we go, 141. I don't think I'll drop down 10 grand while I'm still in the atmosphere. So beautiful launch, and yes, we had a little bit of fuel left over. So 2,000 Delta V is plenty to get us to about 130, 140. It'll actually be enough fuel for us to kind of slow our descent on the way back down too. So anyway, as I was saying, if I had the Kerbal Engineer up, which I will later, you'll be able to see like AppWaps and PeriApps information right from this screen. So I won't have to switch back and forth and check it over here. So that'll be pretty handy. But I do not have that information available to me now. So let's go ahead and pull this up. And when I get that little check mark, I'll launch the next stage. We're getting close. Let me slow down and check if this is active. Yes, okay. Always double check because you'll sometimes only get one shot at this, you know? So here we go, we're getting close. I should probably speed warp, but I don't want to pass it up on accident, so. There we go. There we go. Contract complete. I tested it. And we are going to come back down to Earth now. Kerbin, rather. Something important to note here is that you probably spotted this yourself. You don't need fuel in it, right? You don't need to actually use the item in any measurable way. You just need to activate it. So a lot of times these tests, especially the tests that require you to test like rockets and rocket components, sometimes it's a little better just to send up an empty case, you know, send up the empty shell. And sometimes it's a little bit easier to satisfy your mission requirements that way. So, there we go. I'm starting to get some atmospheric heating. Let's slow down. There's really no reason to do this other than just to ensure safety. There we go. Give Valentina something cool to look at. A lot of debris. Now, that stuff actually is dangerous for you. There's a non-trivial amount of threat in letting things explode around your crew vessel. So in your own playthrough, you know, sometimes maybe don't be so willy-nilly with just like letting things blow up around you like that, but this time it turned out okay, so I think we're gonna be alright. There we go, everything crashes to the ground. There's another mod I'm debating on whether or not to put on. I used to have it here and I took it off. It's called Better Time Warp. and you can change. See, I have 1 times 1, times 2, times 3, and times 4. You can add more, times 5, times 6, times 10, whatever, and warp a little bit faster than the game allows you to, because right now I'm at the max warp and I'm still kind of, it's taking me forever to fall down. There is some concern about that in terms of like sometimes the game engine can't handle the stress of having to warp that fast, so your ship will clip through things or will spontaneously explode or some other anomaly will occur. But for the most part, if you treat it kind of gingerly, then it works just fine, and you can speed through this kind of stuff a little bit faster. But in the meantime, there we go. Let's just check that I don't have a crew report. I do. I have a crew report to do. Likewise, I might also have an EVA report. I don't know if that would pop up. I think it would have popped up if I had one available. So there we go, and let's recover the vessel. In the meantime, I'm not going to get the faster warp. I can just provide commentary during those parts. Hopefully. There we go, we got a little bit of science for that, and we got some 97% value back from the parts that we recovered, because we didn't land too far from KSP. We didn't get any XP, so Valentina's already done that trick. Very cool. I think for the rest of the episode, we're going to talk about flying. We're going to make some planes and fly through the atmosphere. We have this Explore the Moon mission, which we are going to do, but we're going to hold off a little bit longer on that. I think we're going to do one of these observational surveys. So let's go to the tracking station and look at this. When these observational surveys are made available to you, the game goes ahead and loads in the little markers for where those things are going to be. Now, unfortunately, this is the closest I can zoom to the planet, and things are it's kind of tough to see exactly where they all are. But the point is that they're all right around KSC. Sometimes they'll put them way over here or way off in some other part of the planet, and those are a little bit more difficult to do. But since these are all right here, I'm not really concerned with which one of these missions I choose, at least in terms of how far they are from KSC. I wouldn't want to accidentally accept a contract that's too far away, because I don't feel like doing it. And if you decline one, if you fail, then you actually lose some stuff. So don't accept missions that you're not confident that you can complete. Anyway, having said that, all of them are within proximity to KSC, so that's good. The next thing I'm worried about is the mission parameters. For instance, some of these say, take a crew report within flight, in flight below 19, some of them say above. There we go. Take a crew report in flight above 17,300. So I don't want to do this one, because I don't want to have to build a ship that can get up that high. I'd rather stay low, right? Because it was just easier to build a ship that can do that. So take a crew report below 19,000. I'm satisfied with that. And this one says take a crew report in flight above. This one says below 17,000 again. Let's do this one. So I've taken 2 missions that say to do a crew report below a certain altitude. While I'm here, let's upgrade this runway. This is typically the first thing I upgrade in the complex, unless I get froggy with the VAB like I did a couple missions ago. But 75 grand is not cheap, but it's worth it. It's going to pave over the runway. It's going to make it a little bit smoother. It's going to make it easier for us to take off. So I would recommend upgrading the runway even before you use it the first time. It's very difficult to use. This reminds me, I haven't bought any airplane parts yet. So let's run over to R&D, and let's grab the aviation. I have right under 100 science. This costs 45. This is going to provide us just enough aviation parts to actually make a functioning plane. It is actually still very difficult to fly a plane with only these parts, but it is possible. So let me get my controls figured out here. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to use this horizontal Mark 1 cockpit. And we're going to put a liquid fuel fuselage on the rear. Now here's something important. The fuel tank that we've been using has liquid fuel and oxidizer. An oxidizer is what the rocket needs to actually to facilitate combustion. However, we're going to be using jet engines, and jet engines do not need liquid oxidizer. They only need liquid fuel. So it's more efficient to use a liquid fuel fuselage rather than the fuel tank. because half of this fuel tank is taken up by oxidizer. So keep that in mind whenever you're building yours, to make sure that you're using liquid fuel where appropriate. The engine is here. Let's take a look at it real quick. The propellants are intake air and liquid fuel. So I just figured out the liquid fuel requirement. Intake air we're going to have to look at just momentarily. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to build something that looks like a plane, and then we'll move things around to make it work better. And you'll see what I mean by work better momentarily. Put 2 wings on. Put a tail fin on the rear as a rudder. I'm going to go ahead and put this pretty near the rear. And then also, I'm going to take 2 tail fins and put them on the front as canards. And let's see. Small circular intake. This is under aerodynamics, which I think is kind of interesting. I mean, I guess it makes sense. But anyway, the small circular intake is the only thing that we have right now that will actually provide us intake air. We saw a minute ago that these engines need air and liquid fuel, so we need to include these small circular intakes on our plane. However, as you can see, if I just kind of move it around, it's kind of hard to find somewhere to actually stick it on. So what I'm going to do, as weird as this is you can actually make parts clip on the plane, on the crafts, and the game's totally fine with that. Sometimes it causes a problem, but more often than not it doesn't. So I can go ahead and put another small liquid fuel fuselage on the wings, which you do see in real life sometimes, these kind of designs. Small circular intake on the front, providing air to the craft, and then another jet engine on the back, providing even more thrust. So there we go, that will provide all of the lift and thrust that we need. Not the lift, but the thrust. Elevons. We need elevons. These will provide us control. In particular, they will provide us pitch authority. So these are going to actuate up and down and give us some lift. These canards are also going to do that. Well, they're tail fins, but they're functioning as canards. They're also going to provide that. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click on it, and I'm going to deactivate the yaw and roll function of it. You don't really need to do this. I've tested this plane before, and it works fine without it, but I like it. And I'm also going to reduce the authority limiter to 60, because these things get a little out of control, or they can get out of control with a lot of authority limiters, so we're just going to make sure that they don't turn too much. We're going to make them a little less responsive, and that's actually going to be a good thing for us. Right, what else do planes have? They have gears, what do you call them? Landing gears. Right, we have one that can steer in the front, and then we have 2 fixed ones on... I can put them way over here on the wings, right? We're going to have a trike kind of configuration, a tricycle kind of configuration. It's going to provide us a lot of stability in this axis, as well as a lot of stability this way too, so that's fine. It's always important to look kind of side on and make sure that the wheels are actually lower than any part of the craft, because otherwise the things will get crushed when you're trying to take off or land. And alright, and then we also need mission relevant things. First thing is going to be an experimental storage unit. Experiment storage unit, not experimental. This is going to allow us to store multiple science experiments inside of it. So we've run into the problem before where if you wanted to take multiple temperature readings, you had to bring multiple thermometers with you. What we can do now, if we have one of these on board, is we can use a thermometer and then store that experiment in the storage unit, and then use the thermometer again. So that's pretty cool. I thought I'd just put this on there. So put a thermometer in there, put a barometric, a barometer on there, put 2 of these, and sometimes I do the Science Junior. Sometimes I put that on there too, but not today. I'm not going to bother with it. Okay, so this is all the things that we need to make a plane. It does look like a plane. Let's pull up the center of mass overlay and the aerodynamic overlay. There we go, I can move these out of the way. This is actually pretty good. Our center of lift, which is the blue ball, needs to be about in the center, maybe a little bit behind the center of mass, which is the big yellow and black ball. Okay, so that means these wings and all of the lift providing components of the plane are going to be lifting up on the center of mass. If it were to lift the rear, then the thing would topple forward, wouldn't it? Because it'd be heavy in the front, but it'd be lifting in the back. So if we're lifting right over the center of mass, then the thing becomes stable. At least that's the idea. So there we go. I have our elevons, I have our canards, we have our science experiments, and so on and so forth. Let's call this Survey Plane Mark 1. I'm going to keep mentioning. If you guys want to name these things, that would be a lot of fun. Go ahead and name them. Last thing is to put a crew down, and again, we're going to put Valentina on this one because this is something new, and I want her to catch up to Jeb. Let's launch. Now, with these planes, sometimes moving things around will make can make a big difference. Even just a small amount of change can make a big difference. So I'm not guaranteeing success, but I think this plane will fly just fine. So let's go ahead while we're here and log a temperature and a pressure reading, because let's go ahead and do a mystery goo as well, because we are on the runway, which is a new setting. Do a crew report. Here we go, and our crew hatch is kind of blocked by this wing. She could probably still get out, but I'm just gonna not risk it. Right click on the storage unit, click collect all, and then all the stuff that I just did goes in there. Unfortunately, I can't redo the goo because this needs to be reset. These other ones don't need to be reset, but the goo does. So even though I've stored it in here, I still can't use this goo container. If I had a scientist, then he or she could reset it, and that would be cool. Before we take off, let's take a look at the map. Alright, both of our targets are to the southwest of us, so we will have to we'll have to turn around once we get flying. Turn on stability control, press Z to throttle up, and spacebar to go. Turn off the brake that I had activated. And once we get around between 50 and 60 meters a second, I'm going to start kind of gently pulling up. Yeah, if I've designed this thing properly, this thing should take off. So I'm pulling up, and I'm just going to hold it and let it kind of get up to speed. The more speed you have, the more authority you have, typically. Alright. I kind of let me move her around a little bit and kind of see how she acts. Test the roll, test the yaw, test the pitch. Yeah, everything seems to be working just fine. She seems pretty easy to fly. There we go. We take a pretty hard turn here, because we need to be going southwest. There we go. Something like that. Alright, let's speed. Let's warp. Now, on less stable craft, warping like this can absolutely tear your ship apart. In fact, I'm getting a lot of aerodynamic effects here, so I'm actually going to throttle back. The plane doesn't need to be going that fast. It's about 50% for now. Let's see how that treats me. Turn to the left a little bit. Turn a little bit more south. Oh, there we go. You are entering zone 5DBN. Let's go ahead and do my crew report. Let's keep it. Collecting server data for zone 5DBN. Come over here, and then there we go. I have done the observational survey of Kerbal. Now this one is a little bit more to our east. So let's take her this way. Say heading 270 ish. Let's check the map and see if we're heading appropriately. Pretty close. I'm a little high. Might turn it left a little bit. We've got it. Oh, there we go. Stop it. With the speed, with the warp on, it's hard to control the thing. Alright, I said I was entering, so let's go ahead and take another crew report and see if it activates. Oops, I'm sorry. Cancel. Collect. Now do the crew report. Yeah, you need to put the experiment in here before you can do another one. And then there we go. Both of our missions have been completed. Fantastic, let's bring it back home. Now you can land this plane anywhere you want and then just click the, like, collect craft or recover or whatever it is. And that'll be that. She'll be safe, Valentina will be safe, and you'll get some money for the plane and whatnot. But for extra realistic professional points, let's go ahead and bring it back to KSC. I will use a quick save here though, so let's talk about quick saves. First of all, it's F5, there we go, press F5 to quick save. And it creates a little save state of exactly what's happening right now. And if I hold F9, then it'll reload that state. So it's really convenient to quick save and then crash into something, hold F9, and then you go back and you get to try it again. There are conditions when you can't quick save, depending on like your save state or depending on what's happened in the game. I guess we'll talk more about that in the future or whatever, but it's perhaps in some people's eyes a little cheaty, but there's a lot of things that can go wrong in this game, and it's safety, a little bit of a safety net, a little bit of a precaution. So just go ahead and do a save state, a quick save. So that's that. I will be using them because I'm trying to make a YouTube video, and I take more pride in making good content than I do doing something right the first time. Hopefully you guys can appreciate that. So, okay, I'm a little high. I am approaching the runway, but I am a little high. I'm going to throttle back to a little bit below 33% here. I'm going to go ahead and kill my altitude. I'm also going to bring up the altimeter, the terrain altimeter. I'm going to try to get my heading a little bit better. I'm a little bit to the east of the, or I guess to the south actually, of the runway. And my speed's very high. In fact, I'm going to kill my throttle altogether. 200 meters a second is very high. So, you can add drogue chutes and things to your plane, just like you can anything else, and you can land it with parachutes or use them to slow down on the runway or anything else you like. So don't neglect that. I'm gonna press V a couple times to go camera locked view, and then now might make you a little bit nauseous, but now it's gonna lock my camera right below this plane, which I find a little bit easier to do some maneuvers with the plane. It's a little bit easier than having to change the camera view with your mouse constantly. So here we are. I'm on a pretty good approach. I'm gonna try to flare up a little bit like that. Oh, also I'm gonna turn my brakes on so that way I can brake. I'm coming in pretty hot, but this is a long runway. I think I'm gonna be okay here. Ooh, oh, that was dangerous. I did not mean to do that. You want to be going faster than you were when you took off, or slower than you were when you took off, if that makes sense. Ooh. Yeah, so actually, rough landing. I'm actually normally really good at landing, so I'm surprised that happened, but it gives me an opportunity to demonstrate the quick save, the power of the quick save. Yeah, I just didn't slow down early enough, but I'm gonna leave that in there because that's again, it's important to see. It's important to see people mess up, isn't it? I'm gonna turn my brakes on now, kill my throttle. And let's get ourselves aligned here. Yeah, well, I was focusing too much on talking and providing commentary than the things that you're supposed to do kind of in this portion of the flight. There we go. Let's get aligned. Now, the thing is, with this view, the planes do not look stable at all because every little motion of the plane changes the camera. So it looks very funny, but rest assured that the plane is fine in terms of stability. And I'm just gliding. I have my throttle all the way down. It takes a little bit to spool up the engines, right? There is a little bit of what's called spool up. So if I have to give myself a little bit extra fuel, or a little bit extra gas to get there, throttle, I have to bear that in mind in terms of reaction times, It's not just going to go right away. There we go. I gave myself just a little bit to keep me at about 60. Bring my terrain altimeter up. Let's go ahead and adjust my approach. There we go. Why not? Saw an opportunity to just go ahead and land it. Why not? Just land it right there. So, there we go. Missed the mark by that much. Who cares at this point? This plane is really hard to fly, or well, I should say it's really hard to make a plane with this level of tech. That plane in particular is actually not that hard to fly. Those wheels, though, anything you use with those wheels is really tough to land. So yeah, no shame in that. Just land it wherever. Who cares? What else do we have here? 33 minutes in a video. That's about the right length for a video. Are we gonna go moon next? How much money do I have? Let's do this. Let's go ahead and... yeah, let's go ahead and explore the moon. Let's go ahead and accept this one. Yeah, we're gonna do that next episode. I'm just debating on how to do it. I think we're gonna do it all next episode. I also want to... oh, here's an interesting one too. This is why you have to read these. Ferry 2 tourists safely to the destination and back. This one has the suborbital spaceflight, which is what we've done before. This one actually wants to orbit around Kerbal, so we would need to upgrade our ferry. I think we would need to do a Mach 3 ferry, because our current ferry isn't strong enough to actually do this. So if you were to accept this mission, which I probably will, because it's pretty good money. It's okay money, actually, now I'm looking at it. It's pretty good reputation, though. You have to look at this kind of thing. So I'm just going to leave for now. Anyway, 60, almost 69 science. 69 science sounds like... never mind. Just something you'd find online. Anyway, that's it for this episode. I think next episode we're going to do a flyby of the moon. So we've taken our first steps. We've hopped around in the atmosphere. We've hopped around in low Kerbal space, and now we're going to do a flyby of the moon. And yeah, see what's up there. Do a little bit of extra science. That's going to give us a ton of science, by the way. So I will probably be bringing a scientist with me, and that'll be a lot of fun. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this episode up. Thank you guys so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Like, comment, and subscribe if you are so inclined to. If you like what you saw, I really appreciate it. Tell your friends about it, whatever else. Hopefully we have a good time. Remember to go ahead and name those crafts. You can name them whatever you want, as long as it's appropriate. And yeah, you'll be forever immortalized in this YouTube series for naming whatever craft. So do that, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Thanks so much, guys.